YouTube? TheDreadMan is back for the third time today. Now, I want to go a little bit left field from the topics I was originally talking about. Now, I want to talk about hip-hop, and I haven't made a hip-hop topic since my Nicki Minaj looking ass nigga video, or my review on it. But now, I want to talk about hip-hop as far as the coasts and which section of hip-hop has dominated over the past years. Now, oh yeah, and which is your favorite? And which is your favorite era of hip hop? And what is your favorite coast, despite where you're from? I mean, because I'm from Virginia, you know, South East Coast, and I kind of happen to like the Midwest and the West Coast style better. I mean, as far as, you know, the style and the beats and stuff like that, and the South does have the best beats, but I'll talk about that later. And I think that maybe the East Coast has been the best lyrically out of maybe the past 20 to 30 years of hip hop. But anyway. Now, I want to go on record and say, hip-hop, when did hip-hop start? 1975? Yeah, hip-hop started in New York, and the golden era of hip-hop, I guess they say, was the late 80s to the early 90s. Now, hip-hop, like in the 80s, you had NWA. Alright, so anyway, here's how I'm going to break it down. The 70s, mid-1970s, the early 1980s, New York was running hip-hop because that's where it started. Then in the 1980s, like, you know, when NWA and you know rappers like that, you know, started to come out, I think the West Coast was running hip hop in like the late 80s and stuff. Now, the early 90s. Now, when Rakim came out, Rakim actually came out in '86. So when Rakim actually started to blow up, you know, like the early 90s, you know, Rakim, Nas, Notorious B.I.G., Razcast, you know, rappers like Big L, of course, you know, and Jay-Z. That's when they all started to come out. They either came out or they started to blow up in the early 90s. So yeah, I guess you could say that the East was running the early 90s. I guess from about 90 to 93, East Coast was running rap, you know, New York particularly. And the mid 90s, you know, Snoop, Dr. Dre, Warren G, Dub C, let's see, Mac 10, you know, rappers like that, you know, West Coast rappers. I think from 93 to, of course, Tupac Shakur, one of the GOATs. Yeah, I think from 93 to 96 is when the West Coast was running hip hop again. And then you got the Midwest coming up and everything too. You got you got Bone Thugs, you got oh yeah, Twister was even out back then, but Twister didn't blow up into the mid-2000s. But yeah, I have to say that the mid-90s kind of belonged to the West Coast and the Midwest. Now, let's go to the early 2000s. The early 2000s is probably like one of the best eras of hip-hop. I mean, because I would have to say that the Midwest was running hip-hop in the early 2000s. Because you got Eminem, who's probably like the best lyricist out of the Midwest, you know, Detroit. Heck, even Kanye West, like I said, from 2000 to 2004. And you had, let's see, as far as who was popping back then, you had Nelly, you know, St. Louis, you know, then you had them, you know, Midwest popping and everything. Let's see, so from 2000 to 2004, I have to give it to the Midwest. Now, from 2005, well, maybe from 2004 to about maybe 2008, 2009, that's when the South was running hip hop. I have to give it to the South as far as that. I mean, because you had, let's see, Texas really did come up in 2004, 2005, and you know that's when Lil Wayne came out. Well, Lil Wayne, he's actually been rapping since the late 90s, mid and late 90s, but he didn't really blow up until he dropped the Carter 1 and dropped the Carter 2. That's when he really started to blow up and come out. So, and Soulja Boy and everything. That's when the whole hip hop and pop phase started to come, like, you know, in the mid 2000s, from the late 2000s and everything. And from 2010 on, the East kind of, like lyrically, the East never fell off. But hip hop is like, not only lyrics is not the only thing that makes hip hop. Hip hop is also a trend too. So I guess like in the past maybe 2-3 years, hip hop has migrated. The South hasn't really been dominating that much anymore. It's kind of been moving on back to the West Coast. Because you got artists like Kendrick Lamar and Hopsin and J Rock and Ty Dolla $ign, newer rappers like that. So I guess you could say like is starting to go back towards the West Coast. And I thought that West Coast rap was dying. But I guess it's not dying. It's just starting to come back in a newer form. So anyway, just a quick wrap up, just a quick summary. I would have to give the 70s to the mid 80s East Coast. I have to give it to the East Coast. From the mid 80s to the early 90s, I have to give it to the West Coast. From the late 90s to the early 2000s, I have to give it to the Midwest and the East Coast again. From the mid to late 2000s, I have to give it to the South. And from 2010 to now, I have to give it to the West Coast again. But anyway, that'll do it for today's hip hop topic. Y'all rate, y'all comment, y'all subscribe if y'all haven't already, and y'all let me know where you're from, what you rep, and what style of hip hop do you like the best, despite where you're from. All right, I'm out, y'all. Peace.